Do you have your mic on?
No.
Hey, I can hear me yell up here. You guys want to move closer? I'd like to welcome Miss Ann Nichols, that will be representing Manitou Springs. And it's my understanding the mayor is working diligently to get a second member to represent the town. And Ann, if you'd like to say anything, what's your experience or exposure?
Maybe just the one comment I'll make is I am on, figure this out. I am on the Urban Renewal Authority Board in Manitou Springs, and one of the blessings that authority has seen is the WAP project, which is mostly funded by not Manitou Springs, but collaboratively through the county and the city of Colorado Springs. So it has been an absolute boon to us. At the moment, it's a mess, but when they finish in a few months, it's a huge benefit to the URA and the Manitou Springs. So we're big, very positive on the PPRTA and what it's been able to do for Manitou. So I appreciate being here. Thank you.
I'm going to read the purpose statement for the Citizens Advisory Committee, the Pikes Peak Rural Transportation Authority, and I did this a little bit out of order, and we usually read this first, but I'd like to introduce you first. The primary objective of the CAC is to ensure the capital, maintenance, and public transportation projects and programs approved by the voters during the November 2nd, 2004, actually it's the November 6, 2012 elections, are accomplished with PPRTA funds. This committee reports directly to the Board of Directors. All right. Do you hear a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. Second.
That was
Second.
Gene and Larry Tobias. Are there any comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The agenda is approved as presented. Is there anyone here from the public that would like to make comment for items not on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on. Do I see a motion for approval of the minutes to the March 7th?
So moved.
Second.
Give it to Joe.
They were down there. Okay. Are there any comments? Accepted as approved. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any objections? Hearing none, that's good. We are blessed today and cursed at the same time. We have the wonderful Mr. Sonnenberg filling in for the vacationing Miss Bev Majewski to give our financial report. And it's good news.
That is, looking at the numbers.
So he's
Good afternoon. Is this on? Can you hear me? Okay. So in your financial report, you'll see on page 1, the second sheet, page 1 with the chart on it, that the January's receipts were well above the budgeted monthly revenue for January, $660,000 above. That's 9.6%, so that's good news, because you remember several months late last year we were below the monthly budget for several months in a row. But this is, we don't know if this is a trend, but we will get February's receipts probably April 9 or 10, so Monday or Tuesday of next week is when we'll know what February was. So we'll see if we have a trend going or if this is just an aberration. And then on the next page, the good news continues. As we look at the numbers at the top of that page, the same monthly numbers are higher than the month a year ago, or the same month, January of a year ago, 10.73 ahead of January of 2018 is 10.73% ahead of January 2017. So that's also good news. And Bev told me those are the usual things that she covers. Yes, Tony?
Mr. Chairman.
yes.
Thank you. I got the look from Red. So almost 11% jump from last year is pretty huge. Anything in particular affect that we know of?
Not that we know of.
Okay. All right.
We'll just say thank you. We'll just say
Any other questions about the rest of the report that I would attempt to answer?
Would you?
Okay.
Is this the entire, I don't know if this is on, can you hear me? Okay, I should speak in here. Yeah, for the entire report, I did have a question. It was actually on page number 4, as the new kid on the block. The emergency bridge funds,
Yes.
the expenses, it's a negative amount. How does that work?
I don't know the answer to that, so I'll flag it for next meeting. Or if you prefer, Bev will be back on Friday and we can send out an email.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
The one other piece of information I'd like to share with you is that back in the low interest rate, well, we're still in the low interest rate phase, but when interest rates were very low, when we were earning 0.2%, it was the board's decision to do some multi-year CDs in order to get a whopping 1% instead of 0.2%. So the board authorized us about a year and a half ago, or roughly 16 months ago, to do a $10 million 3-year CD with American National Bank, who was not only our checking account but our investment entity at the time. Of course, we switched to College Trust on the standard investments, but we still have the one CD with American National Bank, and we're 16 months into a 36-month CD. And, of course, at the time, getting 1% instead of 0.2% was great. But as everybody's aware, the Fed has increased interest rates, and College Trust tracks that. And now College Trust is up to 1.85%. So versus the 1% that we have in our old CD with American National Bank. So it is financially, it is well worth. It's $42,000 to the good to call or early withdraw that CD that we're 16 months into a 36 months. So for the remaining 20 months, when you do the math, to pay the penalty, get out, and move it to College Trust. And if we do that next week with board approval, it'll be a plus $42,000 if interest rates don't go up any more in the 20 months. Yes, sir, Tom? No, this is liquid. At College Trust, it's liquid. No CDs at College Trust, right?
Any questions?
So just an FYI, that it's a mathematical slam dunk, so we thought we'd inform you, but not ask for your approval, since it's $42,000 to the good, and probably more if rates go up any more than they have already. Yes. I can't imagine you'd say no. So that's the end of the financial report, unless there are any other questions.
All right. Who's here from the city? City of Colorado Springs Capital Maintenance and Public Transportation contracts.
All right. Ryan Phipps, City of Colorado Springs, City Engineering. I'm filling in for Mr. Mike Chavez today. He's normally here with you. So if I overlook something or don't know an answer, I will research it and get it for you. Today we're bringing 2 contracts. The first one, the project name is actually in your packet there, are incorrect. Those are errors. So the first project name for the manhole installation should actually be the PPRTA pre-overlay pipe program, and that is a contract for $34,000 with Lucky Dog Contracting to install 3 manholes so that we are able to access, inspect, and maintain that pipe under the road. The second contract is the funding source is actually citywide traffic signal system upgrades, and that's the Meadowland and Westwood intersection improvements for $585,000 to Blue Ridge Construction.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Tony?
Do you know when that Meadowland Westwood construction is supposed to take place?
I would anticipate it's fairly soon since it was just awarded, so probably within the next 60 days it would probably get started.
Will there be notifications sent out to those who, live on the corner? I literally live on the corner. So.
I will check in, but usually we have some sort of notification process
That'd be
prior to
great.
starting the work.
Gene?
With regard to the manholes on Murray, is that a maintenance project or is it
Yes.
I'm sort of curious as to why it was a maintenance project when the city didn't put manholes in there when they built it? Doesn't seem like it's a maintenance because you're not fixing what's broken or worn out. You're fixing what the city didn't do when you put the storm sewer in.
Want to answer that, Mike?
I think I can answer that. Afternoon, Michael Hensley. I'm with the Public Works Operations and Maintenance Group with the Streets Division. So the reason that we're doing the manhole installation, when they were originally installed, they have different access requirements for confined space. And at the time they were installed, they were put into the code at the time. And they were been maintained up to this point. The reason we're putting the new ones in is to provide safe access so that we can get cameras into the lines and do an assessment on those to see if we're going to have to actually do lining or not on those lines so that we don't have a catastrophic failure. So the bottom line is it's a safety requirement for us to have confined space entry into the pipes.
What kind of access do you have now?
Too far spaced. We can access up to 500 feet at a time, which would be 250 feet from any direction of the manhole. As it sits right now, I think they're beyond 300 feet in either direction.
Is it 4-foot manholes?
I believe they're 32-inch. Is that 32-inch? They're just standard size manhole lid.
Okay, but if I understand things right, you're putting in 48-inch access?
That might be the riser section, Mike.
So the riser ring itself, and the pipe we're accessing, Alan, is 24-inch, correct? So we're putting in a standard manhole ring, which is to current code, to access the pipe that's below. The pipe that's below is actually a 24-inch RCP, which is a reinforced concrete pipe.
It still doesn't sound like it is a maintenance project, unless there's some maintenance that has to be done on the pipe.
That's what we have to install those to access the pipe in order to do the assessment to determine. Well, that's to determine if we actually have to provide any maintenance features to the pipeline.
It's still not a maintenance project, because
We don't know what's damaged, so that's the whole point. So we're doing assessments ahead of paving projects, and the reason we do that is so that we don't have catastrophic failure after the paving is completed.
I understand that you have to be able to inspect the stormwater pipe that's there, but you've been doing it ever since it was put in. You're not making a repair or maintenance to anything on the storm sewer. You're putting in access, and that's not maintenance. If you had those things in place now, and they were failing, and you didn't repair or replacement, I would think that it would fall into the category of maintenance. I don't think this is a maintenance project.
Rick?
There is no document, no ballot measure, no establishing IGA, no board policy, no nothing to give guidance for the definition or the differentiation of maintenance versus capital. Capital, of course, is defined by the ballot list. That's capital. But over the years, there have been lots of instances where there have been challenges like Gene is bringing up, that something that's, maintenance is really capital, but there is no documented or board-approved definition of maintenance. So the only thing I could recommend to you is if a majority of the CAC wants to recommend to the board and insist that this come out of capital funds, cities, PPRTA capital funds, instead of the city's PPRTA maintenance funds, then the CAC, I think that's your only recourse, is if you have a majority vote saying you recommend to the board that this appears to be capital, and you recommend that the board insist that it come out of the city's PPRTA capital money instead of maintenance.
Gene, I'm going to bring up a point similar in nature to what Rick just said. You take a street, doesn't matter who does it, and they do a roto-mill and an overlay. Is that maintenance or capital? The street exists, but you're basically making a major improvement to it.
You're making a major improvement to it probably because it has deteriorated to the point that it needs to be resurfaced.
So is that a capital or? I'll give you a different scenario. Rick's an existing bridge across a waterway or whatever. It fails. You replace it, but you do something better because Rick isn't capable of handling what it's handling right now. Does that become a capital improvement or a maintenance improvement?
I would say it falls in both.
I rest my case. Is there?
The replacement of the failing bridge would be the maintenance. The other, I would say, is doing a significant improvement in the existing infrastructure after you replace the failing bridge or the failing culvert.
Just so you understand, this has been a long time coming or going on since like 2006, 2007.
Okay,
Tom?
so I'm kicking a dead horse.
To muddy the waters a little bit more, if this street needs to be repaired with PPRTA or 2C money?
This particular segment is actually under 2C funding. We don't have a mechanism in place under 2C funding to allow for stormwater repairs or assessments.
So why wouldn't 2C money be used to fix the manhole issue?
There was no provision put in the 2C ballot measure when it was initially put in. So we had to have something in place, so this is a supplement of that work.
Joan?
I guess for me and for the amount of this, I'm not going to quibble if it's maintenance or capital. To me, it seems to be more in the maintenance arena, and if this is how the city wants to use their maintenance dollars, I have no problem with it. I think it probably makes more sense to be in maintenance than capital.
Tony?
I agree with Joan, and I'd like to make a motion if there's no
I
further
was going to
discussion.
do that.
So I move to approve the two items on this contract list for the city.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Is there any, are there any opposed? Noted. That passes whatever the quantity is less one. Sorry. All right, El Paso County, we have Ms. Jenner. Good afternoon, young lady.
Good afternoon, Mr. Acting Chair and Committee. Jennifer Irvin, County Engineer. We have several contracts for your consideration today. Go through those and be happy to answer any questions as we go along because you may have some. So, first item we have is our 2018 asphalt pavement materials purchase order. This is for $200,000, and we've identified 3 vendors. We'd like to essentially award to all 3 vendors, and then as we go along in our program, what we do is dependent on the type of material that we need, the best value for that material, and the proximity to the project, because it changes based upon the location. What we do is we work with each vendor to get the best possible price based upon their bids. And so we try to obtain the best value. So this contract, we'd award a $0 to each one, and then on this, we would not go above the overall $200,000 for this item. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yes.
Yes.
I have a question, Jennifer. Is that $200,000 max per purchase order, or?
No, just overall. So we're just asking overall amount that we would spend on those materials purchased would be $200,000.
Yeah, go ahead.
If you do put it out to a decision,
Can't hear.
then are you just still going to pay the bid price?
Yeah, but what we look at is when we're, so each of them have different types of materials that are available. It depends on where the project is, and we depending on where that is, we get the best price for what that location is. So we're trying to make sure that we use the contract in the best possible way. And the other part, the reason why we do this too, is that in the winter when we need some of this material, because sometimes we're filling a pothole or doing some maintenance in the winter, some of those entities are shut down for maintenance. So what they do is they actually coordinate with one another, and so they always have a plant open. So that also gives us the greatest flexibility to make sure that we're keeping up with the work. So. The next one is our concrete surface drainage program, and we went out to bid on this one this year because we had a previous contract with several options, but those options ran out, and it was a good time to go out for bid. And so we got 2 bids for our concrete surface drainage program, and Olganik Enterprises, which is a different entity than we had previously, made a good bid. Just to let you know, we have had good we've had them on other projects, not our surface, not this one, but I just wanted to let you know, in the past we've had AA several times, but Olganik, we've worked with them, and they gave us a great bid, I think, and I think it's like $600,000 to $700,000 below the other one, and so we're looking to award that for $2.4 million. So this is available for sidewalk replacement, curb and gutter replacement, pans, and sometimes if we need to, an inlet or so. But I think that they gave us a good price. The next item is our crack sealing contract, and this is $800,000 with American Paving Solutions. And this is a previous contract that was done in 2015, and we had the contract was for 1 year with 4 options, and this would be the 3rd renewal option. They've done great work for us and have done that very quickly. I think last year the work that we had identified for them was done in approximately 1 month of all the crack sealing that we did. So.
Can you tell me if that includes that wide crack sealing material? Or are you buying that and using your forces to put it in?
Yeah, that's that. So yes, correct. That does not include the wide crack sealing material. We're using our own forces to be able to do the wide crack. We have better. This is just more for they're usually used for. What we look at is a couple years ahead. We're maintaining and doing that crack seal before we overlay or doing our chip seal program. So that's really what we're using this for.
Follow-up question. How is that wide crack seal proving so far?
I think that we're doing the best that we can, but part of the issue is that, and we're working with the city through CAPA, the Colorado Asphalt Pavement Association, and looking at different alternatives to the wide crack repairs. There's lots of different things. One of the things that we did, I think that is in the best interest of our taxpayers, is that we went back and we revised our standard for how we do. We, together with the city, we have revised how we do our pavement, and so when the county had an option for paving to go on native material and have a full depth section on native material. That really wasn't working. So one of the things we've done to try to combat that, especially on new paving, is to require a composite section, which we see a better, we're seeing less of that wide cracking and combating it that way. So that's one thing that we're doing. But we're continuing to monitor. We've done some of the wide crack sealing with that mastic material for a couple years, and we're seeing good results.
What did you define a white crack?
Hey, it's like maintenance and capital improvement.
What we look at is really larger than a half inch or an inch. It really is beyond where you do your simple maintenance. And sometimes, we're rather than just blowing that out and putting cracks in material, we're going back and we're actually it's kind of like routing out a wider section and then filling it back in and really cleaning it out and trying to address that. So
So that's a big
generally, I mean, it just depends.
Tom?
I noticed that they're located in Green Bay. Do they have a crew out here, so they don't get there through the south? They do it themselves?
They do it all over the country, and when we did bid it, we had several bids, and they were actually the lowest, and so they do.
For a defined period of time, and
Yep.
they're gone?
But they, I know it's Green Bay, but they come and they do their thing and then they go, and we actually got better bids than we did locally. I mean, usually we get better bids locally, but this is a company that I think kind of does that, and that's their specialty, and so we've gotten good prices from them. Alrighty, the next one is our annual chip seal program, and this is for $600,000 to Suncor Energy. If you read your backup, what I just want to kind of give you a heads up about is that CDOT is we're piggybacking on CDOT's contract, and CDOT is just receiving new bids on this, and I don't know if you're aware of this, but some of the electronic mail from CDOT has gotten hacked, so they are having some issues in trying to do business on a regular basis because they're unable to do it very well electronically. They're back to pencil and paper and faxing. So I just wanted to bring to your attention is that CDOT has not yet awarded. I'm hoping by the time we go to the board, CDOT has not yet finalized, but in the past, over the 8 years, because Suncor is the only vendor in the state of Colorado, they have gotten good prices. So here, we're kind of anticipating that Suncor is going to get that bid, and we're going to go ahead and piggyback off of that. But we're looking at a maximum of $600,000. So just want to try and move this ahead so that when the season is here, which is June or July, that we're ready to go with our materials. So wanted to bring that to your attention. We anticipate having a final contract information from CDOT prior to the board. And then lastly, West Colorado Avenue, and this is a property acquisition. And want to bring to your attention that we're putting this on here for some good transparency and also because of a process that the city has. This acquisition, as you know, West Colorado Avenue is a joint project between the city, the county, and the city of Manitou Springs. And this acquisition is actually in the city of Colorado Springs. And so as we're doing property acquisition, what we're doing is that the project is doing the property acquisition, but the acquisition for within each entity is going through their own process. And so within the city of Colorado Springs, when they do their approvals, they come through the PPRTA for those projects that are related to the PPRTA. But what I want to tell you about this one is that this is actually funded with devolution funds. So it's really, and those devolution funds are funds that are sitting in County Road and Bridge, and these are part of our overall scheme for funding this project. And those were funds that the county received from CDOT for taking over West Colorado Avenue, and that our Board of County Commissioners said that that's what we were going to spend this money on is part of the Colorado Avenue project. So this is coming through you not really as an approval of a contract after funding from PPRTA, but as a matter of how the city handles its property acquisition and getting its approval through PPRTA. So hopefully you've read the backup. We had an original appraisal of about $192,000, and the property owner had an appraisal about $525,000. And I think it came to through city real estate. They do the negotiations because it is in the city. They came to a negotiated price of $280,000. So I think
Mr.
that's pretty appropriate.
Tony?
I just had, there's a typo error on the, under the negotiated value part. In the text, it says 26,000 was negotiated for the temporary easement impacts, but your chart says 25,000. So but before it goes before the board, I think that typo, I don't know which one was correct and which one was wrong.
Sure, we'll check on that. I appreciate that. That's a good heads up.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead, Carl.
Mr. Chair, just a point of order. So this is to be treated just as an information item and not a recommendation by the CAC. Is that correct?
No, it's all one, correct.
So
It's-
we are going to
It's not-
recommend, even though
we're
it's a
gonna
zero
recommend it.
amount, it's a recommendation to go ahead and approve this acquisition. Is that correct?
Yeah, as
Thank
my
you.
understanding is procedurally, the city takes its acquisitions through the PPRTA, and rather than going through the entire city council, they're taking it through the PPRTA. And so I'm not the expert on the city process, but that's what I understand. And so procedurally, that's what we're doing. This is not a dollar amount that's coming from the PPRTA, but I think it's procedurally getting approved through the city process by the board of directors. So I guess I would ask for a recommendation.
This, just for your understanding, this is a joint project between City of Manitou Springs, City of Colorado Springs, and El Paso County. All of them have property involved, so to speak. And El Paso County's engineering department has taken the lead position on it, even though the money's coming from all three entities, the PPRTA.
But this is a zero amount from PPRTA. So these are not PPRTA funds. This is other funds that are not under the control of the PPRTA. Is that correct?
Correct, but these are funds that the county has committed as a result of the devolution and as a result of agreements between CDOT and also with the full knowledge of the City of Colorado Springs and Manitou. So, yeah, I think that this is procedurally just approving the acquisition and recognizing that no dollars are coming from PPRTA.
But that the overall project falls under the member
Correct.
governments.
Gene?
One question, Jennifer, for information. Looking at the detailed map on the last page.
Gene, can't hear you.
Just a question for information. Looking at the detailed map on the back, I presume that the areas that you're looking at are the slightly crosshatched, hatched portions, is that correct?
Yes, as well as the portion just below the crosshatch. The crosshatch portions are easements versus if you look just below the easement, you'll see a RW-35. That is actual fee simple right-of-way, so property. So that entire property will go and be owned and maintained by the City of Colorado Springs. The easements that are crosshatched will the city will have interest by having an easement, but it will still be under the ownership of that property owner. Hopefully that makes sense.
The need for the solid green area with the RW on it. It looks like we have a trail there already, but we don't own the property. Do you know what's over there?
Essentially, I mean, that's part of the RV, but essentially that part is actually where the bridge is being relocated, and essentially Fountain Creek is going to be relocated. And so essentially, that really has no remainder value to that property owner. And so the city, really, to be able to own and to maintain it, it really makes sense to own that parcel versus having an easement, because it really has no remainder value for that property owner.
Especially with the creek there.
Thank you.
Yep.
Are we ready for a motion?
Not yet. I want to ask a question, please. Jennifer, why is, I'm assuming this is, you're paying a base value of $4 or $6.50 a square foot. At 80% or at 50%, what determines the 80 or 50?
So it depends on the appraisers and how they feel that impact is done. Typically, from a government standpoint, it's 80%. Sometimes the private appraisers look at 90 or 100%. In this case, that appraiser gave it a higher unit value but a lower percentage value. So it's because that they essentially, it's kind of subjective, but it's essentially because it's an easement and it's really not usable. It's good for setback. It's good for maybe to be able to put landscaping in or put parking in, but it's usually not, something that they could put a building in or something like that. So it's really subjective, and they have use PAP appraisal guidelines, but even with that, every appraiser is generally different, just as with the value. So.
Yeah, it's amazing to see, isn't it?
Any other questions? Tom?
I move that we approve the 4 contracts and the procedure that was outlined by Jennifer's presentation, noting what was discovered on the typo.
Second.
That was Tom and Joan. Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any objections? Passed unanimously.
Thank you for your consideration today.
And we have Brian, we've got Brian today. I watched the white. Well, I missed once.
Good afternoon. Brian Vituli, City of Colorado Springs, Mountain Metro Transit, with your monthly transit report. For our fixed route services for the month of February, we saw a decrease of a little over 11% for that month as compared to February of 2017. No indication of why this ridership decrease. But with the exception of last year, we generally see a dip in February for whatever reason. This year the winter's been pretty mild, so we don't really know why the dip for this month, but we'll continue to track that. Yeah, except it was the same 28 days last year too, but yeah, so there's no real reason for why the dip this month.
I guess people have been winter bound so long.
For our ADA paratransit services, we saw a decrease of a little under 2% for the same time period. And for our van pool services, we operated 25 van pools during the month, and we saw an increase of about 5% over February of 2017. A project update. Last week we finalized our recommendation for our spring 2018 service changes, and I've been giving you updates on this over the past several months since last fall. We held our public process at the end of January. We had 3 public meetings that were very well attended. Funding for all of our improvements in 2018 are courtesy of $1.4 million in additional PPRTA revenues and additional city general fund dollars. The improvements for spring of 2018 include off-peak service improvements, which are highlighted underneath there. It's basically adding frequency to Routes 1 and Route 3 on Saturday from 60 minutes to 30 minutes. These are heavy ridership routes during the weekday, but also very good ridership on Saturdays, which kind of warrants better frequency. We're adding Saturday service to Route 32, which goes from the Academy Hancock area down into Security and Widefield. Currently, that's just a Monday through Friday route. We're adding Sunday service on Route 10, which goes from the downtown terminal down to Pikes Peak Community College. That currently does not have Sunday service. And Route 19 goes from our downtown terminal north to just north of Garden of the Gods, Austin Bluffs, across from the University Village Shopping Center. So that does not have Sunday service, but will in the spring. So all of these improvements will be implemented on Sunday, April 29th. The other item is removing a long-term detour that we had in place during the I-25 Cimarron interchange reconstruction project. With the reconstruction of the Cimarron Street Bridge and all of the work on the interchange, we used to operate on Cimarron, but we moved it to operate on Colorado Avenue before it would turn south on A Street. Now that work is done, we're able to resume our normal routing. That will also take effect on April 29th. And the third item was a policy change where we are going to eliminate the ADA free fixed route fare. Currently, the policy allows people who are qualified or eligible to ride our ADA paratransit service to ride our fixed route system for free. We are proposing and we're recommending actually that the policy be changed to allow those customers to pay 85 cents. So what it does, there was an inconsistency in the policy. Customers could come to our office and become certified to ride the ADA paratransit system. And that policy was that they could ride our fixed route service for free. Other customers who would be certified through the Independent Center would be eligible to ride our ADA service, but they would be required to pay 85 cents to ride the fixed route system. And then there are customers who just didn't want to get certified, and they had to pay 85 cents. So there were some inconsistencies, and frankly, there was some fraud because we would get customers coming to our certification office saying that they were there for their free bus pass. So word on the street spread that they could get this certification and ride our fixed route system for free. So we're trying to be consistent with our policy. So it's 85 cents for all disabled riders, senior riders, and youth under 18. So there's no inconsistencies there. And as a somewhat of a compromise, something that we never had before was a monthly, 31-day pass. It was only offered for the full fare for $63, but we're offering a 31-day pass, half fare pass for $31. So that's $1 a day. So that kind of helps out with this policy change.
So that's an unlimited travel pass then on each day?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, and the other one is 85 cents per trip?
Per trip, yes, yeah. So $1.70 for a round trip, yes, yeah. So, and there was a fair amount of, opposition to this policy change, but there was actually some support from riders that would be affected by that. They get the concept of actually paying for a service that's being provided to them. So that was good to hear. And to help allow those who will be affected by this a little bit of time to adjust their budgets or whatever they need to do, we're not going to implement this until Sunday, September 30th. And so those are the recommendations and the changes that we're going to put into effect for the spring. And we have notification on all of our vehicles, and our website's been updated, so the word's spreading of what our changes are going to be for the spring.
Brian, if I could, I think the offering of the $31 fare was a good move to help mitigate this. I think $1 a day is, for somebody who utilizes it quite often,
Right.
is probably going to be a reasonable
Right.
accommodation. Did have a question real quick on the funding. Mentions the $1.4 million in PPRTA. How much from the city general fund was it?
I'm blanking on the amount. I know it's.
I mean, just roughly, obviously.
I know at the last minute during the budget negotiations, Council Member Avila got an additional $300,000 added to what was already being proposed. So I'm believing it's somewhere around 700,000 city general fund.
I'm not gonna,
Thank you.
I'm not gonna whip you.
Yeah, I know it's over 300,000 because there already was a general fund budget increase with the mayor's budget release, and then the council member had the $300,000 added in, so it's somewhere above 300,000, and I thought it was somewhere around 700,000.
Okay, so yeah, so roughly about half of what the
Right,
RTA.
right,
Yeah, okay.
yeah. And this, these dollar figures will be spread out between the spring service changes and what we're planning to implement this fall. So we're looking to start that public process probably in June. So we're going to start it a little bit earlier for this fall because we're proposing to add service to Pikes Peak Community College's Rampart campus up north. And, they would like that service to begin at the beginning of the fall semester, which is August 27th. So we need to back up the public process for that. So I'll be coming to you probably in May or something, April. Well, this is April. Maybe next month, yeah. Next month, kind of with an outline of what we're looking to do for this fall. All right. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Yes. We have a grant application in with the Colorado Springs Health Partners to hopefully help fund services to Memorial North and Children's Hospital, Penrose St. Francis up north, and PPCC's Rampart campus. And it's kind of a partnership, and we're hoping to hear soon on that.
Tom,
Yeah,
just a second. You said Colorado Springs Health Partners, or is it the
Health Foundation.
Okay.
Yeah.
With your new less expensive pass, how disabled does one of our clients, a Marion House, or somebody like that, have to be in order to get that? That could save us a ton of money.
Well, I think from what I hear, the eligibility process is it's not that strict.
Do they get a card or something?
Yes, they get a card. Yep, they'll come into our office and have an interview with one of our certification specialists, and they'll get documentation that they show the operator when they board. And I believe they can also create an online account where they can, load money to it, so that there isn't really doesn't have to be a transfer of money. They can just show the card, and it's a pretty easy process.
Thinking about all the people that we get that just walk in the door and they don't have any.
Yeah.
What they've got is in their pocket.
Mm-hmm.
And are they going to be able to talk themselves into qualifying for a disability? They aren't going to have any doctor's permits or any doctor's forms?
Not that I am aware of. I think, that would be the first step, is encouraging them to come in to be certified. Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
All right.
City of Colorado Springs, monthly change order and property acquisition report.
Thank you.
And I'm the only one that's going to be a problem with this.
Ryan Phipps, City of Colorado Springs, City Engineering. You've got the change order log in front of you there, and I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
Mr. Chair.
Well, thanks.
Mr. Chair.
Just a second. You've got an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. You can put this in portrait or landscape. Why didn't you put it in landscape?
So you can't read it.
Hey, you that doesn't use a microphone, don't complain about somebody else's
Hey, it's
document.
my eyes, not my ears that are hurting.
Oh, the poor baby.
Mr. Chair.
I was being halfway serious, though. It doesn't seem, we appreciate it because it's been something that's recently added, and I appreciate it.
Wrong.
But it's
And it's
hard to
all
read.
wrong.
What?
And it's all wrong. These percent increases are not the correct percent increases. Those percentages shown are the percent of the final amount. Those are not the percent increases. Like, for example, the one that says 60%, that's not a 60% increase, that's a 150% increase. The final is 60% of, or the increase is 60% of the final, not 60% increase. I've got all your correct numbers here if you'd like it. But these numbers are a lot larger on the increases, not what's on this list.
As you understand it.
Beat me to it.
No, not as I understand it, as math says.
Well, I couldn't read it, so I didn't check. Sorry.
You don't own the magnifying glass?
No, I was going to go to the county's election department and use one of the magnifying sheets we used to put in front of the senior citizens.
It's only for information.
So it's an
It's information only. But this is
Should we ask
provided.
for a revision? Because Tony's right.
Yeah, it's not very good information if it's not correct.
Well, or it's correct, but it's just the headers are incorrect.
Well, you can change the header, sure, that's fine. But if we're looking to get information on what the percent increase is, which is what we've asked for in the past, which is what the policy says, then we need to have correct numbers on what the percent increase is.
Rick?
Let's see, are there a couple of options here? Is it, do you want the percent increase of the current change order is the numerator? What do you want to be the
I went ahead and did the numbers based on the previous change order total, because we've already seen those up to the previous change order. Now with the new change order amounts, the amount of the change order over the previous change order is what I ran numbers on. They're significantly higher. I was not looking at previous change orders in that number, because that obviously would push it extraordinarily high on some of
other
these.
option is that the
Original contract,
previous, of
150,
the
change
current
order,
change order
608.
plus previous change orders divided by the original contract.
Well, that would be a massive
Yes.
amount on a couple of these.
Do you want to see that?
That's up to this committee and the board, but I was just running it based on what we already had versus the new amount.
Don't we have a policy that states at certain levels there's more requirements for reporting?
Not on maintenance.
No, no, maintenance. I'm sorry.
Yeah, maintenance is purely informational for us.
I would like to see that, though.
I think it would be good to see how much has changed. If you start with a $100,000 project originally, and by the time it's, some of these up over $750,000, and that's,
Well, that's
I'm not sure what's in it.
That's your first line here. Is the original contract is 150, and now with all the total change orders, you're up to 600.
Yeah, when you're looking at 5 times the amount on the original contract amount, that's a 500% increase or a 400% increase.
So
Yeah.
do we care
From
about-
original, but not from previous
Do we
change
care
order.
about the column that says month? Do we care about that? This is, I think, the first or second month that we've gotten this since the board.
Oh, yeah, I don't think the month is important.
To help with the
Knowing-
font size on the landscape.
Well, knowing, I think it's a good piece of information to know, okay, this is the percentage increase over the original contract, and this is the percentage increase that this particular change order represents. So having
Divided
both
by
of
the
those.
previous change order total. So two.
Yeah.
columns?
Actually, having two separate pieces, this is the percentage increase this particular change order represents over the previous, and the percentage increase over the original contract amount.
Right. Just go back through, Mr. Chair. May I continue? Sorry, I don't mean to
No, that's fine.
speak out of turn here. I don't know that we definitely need to see the percentage increase from the original, because like you look at the original on the TLM constructors, the original was 400,000. Now we're at almost 5.8 million. The percentage increase is going to be thousands of percent. I want that kind of return myself on something, but
Would be nice, wouldn't it?
right.
I'd like to bid contracts like that.
Yeah. So, but at least over the previous change order, I think would be very good for informational purposes. But
Well, the only thing that concerns me about that would be the incrementalism.
Right.
It would encourage creep.
Yeah.
I think also, if we're looking at the percentages, like you say, a couple of these are really interesting. Original contract amount, 400,000. Total change orders, 5,378,000. I think we need to have also a line item for each one of these to explain how come we've had that change. Because that's a lot of money to have that much of a change. It doesn't have to be real detailed, but why did we go from 400,000 to over $5 million?
Yeah, so one thing, I wasn't involved in developing of the change order log, and so I think it sounds like maybe the column headings should be clarified as far as what you may be looking for, because we're engineers, we can do math pretty good as long as we're told what specific information you're looking for. But to clarify, on a number of these maintenance contracts, they're not. It's not as if the original scope of work was intended to be $100,000 and then we've gotten way out of control and it's $1 million. A lot of these are set up at the beginning of the construction season where it's a task order contract. So the original task is for that $400,000, and then next task is another $400,000. The next task is another, and it incrementally adds up through the year to that $5 million. It's not that the original scope of work went overboard by that much. It's the way that these contracts are set up as a task order basis. So once they've completed that first order of work, they're then moved on to the next and the next and the next.
Or you could explain that in one or two sentences, just like what you described, to explain to us, how come it has gone from that figure to the higher figure.
Brian?
Under the description, and I want to make sure I'm understanding it correctly. In many cases, there's the original contract, and because the city has negotiated what they consider to be a good price, especially given inflationary pressures, they're extending and adding on to these contracts in order to maintain that price. Is that a correct assumption?
We typically have a time frame that we can that's included in the original contract. The original contract will specify so many option years or the time frame in which both the city and the contractor are bound to that particular set of rates.
Okay, so it would be safe to assume that adding 2018 funds and extending contract it would be a safe assumption that that's because we have a good price and we want to maintain that.
Right. Or sometimes the contract allows the price to be renegotiated each year, and we have to review and approve that to ensure that that's still within ranges that we think is acceptable.
So the ones that would be really concerning would be something like a revision of scope of work. That would be something that might be a concern to some of the folks because it's actually a complete change of what was originally intended.
If I understand you correctly, yeah. If you had a contract set up with somebody that was doing signal work, that was what the original work was, and then you wanted to have a task for them to go and do some extensive amount of stormwater work, and where it's a different type, then that's an area that you might be concerned. But if they're doing signal work and there happens to be a need to put a couple sticks of pipe in at this next signal, I wouldn't consider that to be an area of concern.
Or you find a before known water line.
Yeah, that happens more often than we'd like to admit.
Rick?
Are these change orders brought to us for our review?
No. These are maintenance. And this was done as a courtesy. We approved the original maintenance contracts.
Right.
Okay? They do that. But change orders, and gosh, I don't remember exactly how long ago. We originally started at $25,000 for any contract, and then we went to $100,000. And now we are up to a $500,000 limit on, and I'd have to look back. Rick?
When we want a change order on something, this is easy. We have a change order, it's not for our recommendation, it's for our review, is it?
That's right.
Doesn't it also go through CTAB?
Well, yes, it does, but what I'm talking about, why should we have a line of explanation explaining why we've already reviewed it?
I'm sorry I said anything about landscape portrait.
That's
But
fair.
he's got a very good point. Lets you know how much this has progressed and over a period of time, the contract. And it's just as percentage, because I do it normally when I can read it, the print's large enough. But seriously, I do it normally just to see how much it's amounted to. And something that comes to mind real quickly off the top of my head is Nolte NV5. And that has not been, and this is a heads up for you right now. Put Mike on notice, there better be some invitations for proposals on that. I'm sorry?
To recompete.
Right, recompeted.
Mr. Chair, just as a point here, I wasn't, my point in starting this whole conversation wasn't to question the numbers on whether it was appropriate to have these amounts of change orders. My point was that if we're going to have an informational piece, we need to have the accurate calculations on this. That, you know, if it's going before the board, I want them to see the actual numbers of what's happening. That was my whole point to start this whole thing. So.
Yeah, I think, I'm not sure who put this together or who owns this table, but it should probably be more clear about what percent increase is, if it's over, what it's with respect to.
A point of contracting, if you're going to go to the trouble of stipulating you've got option years, you should probably also stipulate the max amount that will be funded on that contract from the beginning. So if it's going to be $500,000, you state that, because that tells your bidders what the possibilities are. And so if you leave that open-ended, people may bid and be disappointed, or you may not get bids from people who don't want to bother with it if it's going to be just the original number. So being fully open about what you're thinking in the process will get you better bids.
Rick?
But you'll recall that the Board Policy 29 that just passed a couple months ago that started this, so we're in the process of fine-tuning what we want. The Board Policy 29 just states all member governments shall report to the Cabinet Board on a monthly log all change orders, maintenance change orders in excess of 25%, which have occurred after the fact on board-approved maintenance contracts. So we're fine-tuning what you and the board want to see in this report. So this is a good little effort here.
And to Tony's defense, I agree. You should be able to understand what those percentages are, and you might change rules. But it's on a spreadsheet. It's on an Excel spreadsheet, so.
I think it is Mike Zeller.
Okay.
So if possible, if this could be revised this afternoon or in the morning, so I can put it in the board packet.
Yep. I'll talk to Mike about it.
Flip it, turn it on landscape, take out the column that says month, because I don't think anybody cares about that.
What do we want the percent increase to be, or do we want to have two columns where one is percent increase over
percent
the original?
increase? The formula for this, as you stated, you're an engineer, you should know this, is the change over the original amount.
Yeah.
What we've got is the change over the final amount. That's not a percent increase. So percent increase that is labeled fine. Whoever put in the formula into the field on Excel just did it wrong. Fix it to what percent increase actually means, and then populate. You're fine. That's the only difference.
Right, so we're talking about percent increase over original contract and percent increase over what the previous contract amount was.
I was concerned over previous, but I think there was enough interest in this room to see percent over previous and percent over original.
Two columns.
Yeah, two columns.
Okay.
The policy, though, states basically over the original, right? That's when you get to 25% over the original.
Good question.
He's looking at policy 29, right?
Well, it can be interpreted two ways.
So policy 29 might need to be revised a little bit.
It's all your fault, Reb.
Or
I didn't do that.
it's an easy math exercise. If
Yeah,
you
we'll
do
beat
both,
you later.
Then,
Actually, I wrote
then I'm sure the city and the county can do both. You want 25?
Mic on when you said that.
So
Oh,
any
yeah,
one
I
change order
wanted my
that's
mic
over
on.
25% more than the original? No?
Be more than the original.
Such massive changes as the original. That's what the previous.
Wasn't that the intent of Board Policy 29? It was the original. What is after the fact, I guess, is that unclear what it is,
Not
which have
intended.
occurred after the fact?
It's not intended to be prior approval.
Just to keep you informed of where it's going.
Yeah, I'm just looking, I actually have Board Policy 29. That's what I was shuffling through, and I apologize for making a lot of noise on that. But that was back in January. It was approved, but in excess of 25%, which have occurred, and in parentheses, after the fact, on board-approved maintenance contracts. And so that 25%, the way I interpreted that was the original amount. That's how I thought of it.
Yes, that was the intent.
And so what I'm saying is that then, therefore, the information that's presented in the spreadsheet should be consistent with Board Policy 29. Now, you can add more information to clarify, but at the minimum, it needs to show the information that was in Board Policy 29, which I think goes back to Tony's point, I believe. Just clear it up. What is it you're showing here for
All right,
percentages?
understand what he's explaining. Some of these contracts are 3 to 5 years in length and renewable on a yearly basis. And so if you go 25% of the original contract, and we're going to use round numbers, you start with a $100,000 contract, and you may give out a $50,000 change order for whatever, and go way over the 25% in the first year. Okay? So just knowing how it's progressed is just saying basically the city, or the entity, has felt comfortable using that thing as a thing. But it also builds comfort with the board and the CAC that
What would be the value of having a percentage over the original? Why not just percentage of
what is existing now. In other words,
existing now and the change order? Is it only 25%? I mean, the figures from the original and existing is already there. Why have a percentage? That's going to be a number I heard.
just to show how much confidence I've gotten in you, I've continued to grow your contracts from 100. Now your contract is up to 400 for the sake of discussion. That's a 400%. Is that the way you guys figured?
I'm sorry.
Yes.
400% increase over your original contract in less than a year.
Exactly right.
Why can't you do something different in terms of contracting? The other point of it is, if you've gotten a $50,000 contract, okay, that's an extension, an addition, you've gone from 400 to 450, that is only, what, 12.5%?
12.5%.
Yeah. And that doesn't have to be reported, okay?
But if you come here with a spreadsheet and you had a $100,000 contract and you've done changes up to $400,000, those two columns, so I'm smart enough to look at that and say, wow, that's a pretty good increase. But if they're coming for another increase and they want another $50,000, percentage of the 400,000 is the percentage of that. Why have another percentage column?
Rick?
Okay. First of all, how would you feel about limiting this to calendar year basis only, so that you're not doing the multiple year? You don't have $100,000 in 2016, and then that contract with all its renewals then starts racking up high percents. What about sticking with a calendar year basis and lopping it off at December 31, starting over?
I thought that's what, I thought these were 1 year long. I don't know that we've.
Are you okay with that?
I can't speak for Mike, but I understand what you're getting at, and I think that that's reasonable.
Okay. So
What was that you were proposing? I'm sorry, you're saying just,
calendar year basis, no carryover.
I'm not particularly comfortable with that, especially looking at some of these change, I actually looked at the change order numbers here, and it's like, oh, we have change order number 16. So that tells me this is a multi-year project. You know, just an example, I was just picking on one, and I can tell right away by looking at the change order number that these are very long-term projects. But that was the only way I could ascertain that. By eliminating that, I'm not sure it would be informative.
All the maintenance contracts get annual renewals through Mike Chavez, Mike Zeller. Through the CACNA board, you'll remember in November, December of each year, you get a list, particularly from the city, listing all the contracts that are renewed for another year.
And
so I would recommend that we instruct the staffs just to make it on a calendar year basis and stop it at December 31 midnight. The second thing is, how about the percent is the cumulative change order percent over the original contract? Show the new change order, but the percent is the cumulative of the new change order and the previous change orders year to date. That percent. Divided by the original contract.
I like having that, and it sounds like most others in here do. I also would like to see the change over the previous change order, just because. I mean, I don't know that in this particular one, using that same example of the 400,000 that we started with, we're up to almost 6 million. That just every time they come back, they're showing that it's now we're at a 1,000% increase. Well, now we're at 1,010% increase, and now we're at I would like to know what the new change is in that percentage on the informational purposes.
Is the numerator? What's the denominator?
The denominator.
The
previous change order being the denominator. Yeah.
Previous contract amount.
Yeah, previous contract amount. Well, no. Previous change order amount, total contract amount after the previous change orders. Sorry, yeah.
Not including the original contract.
What was it prior?
You'd want to include it.
Yeah. What was it prior to this change order? What was the total prior to this change order? Okay. I don't know what you guys.
Contract amount.
Okay, the current
If you
contract amount.
incorporate money with the change order, then that's the new contract.
That's the new contract amount, yeah.
That would make sense to me.
And just one more clarification, do you have multiple change orders for the same contract within the month?
It happens from time to time where
So
you
that would
might
have to be shown
more than
as
one.
multiple change orders that occur within the month, and the change from the previous one within that month as well. So that would need to be included somehow, explained on the spreadsheet you provide. Are we making this hard for you?
It's making it hard for the maintenance guys. I typically do capital.
How'd it go, Jen?
Okay. I think we have an agreement.
Rick, aren't all maintenance contracts, I'm going to take the city and the county, aren't they all basically annual? The problem I have with that, when I say that, Jen has just come today and asked for maintenance. I think they're all materials, but, I think, no, one of them's a contract to do certain work.
Crack seal, concrete.
But if they were doing that, her contract, is that start today? So it isn't on a quote annual basis, it's whenever the contract expires.
So, and I don't know how the city works, but how the county contracts work, we can have, so for example, one of them you saw today was an award with 3 options, an additional option year. So what we do every year, when we have that kind of contract, we come to you every year at the beginning of the year and say, okay, here is our 2018 contract amount, because those are options. So, for example, Olganik, we awarded this year, we're saying we have a contract with them that has X number of options, and for this year, 2018, we're spending $2.4 million. And then next year, if we decide to exercise that option, we will come back to you in 2019 and say, this is the 2019 amount that we're spending. And so then I would anticipate if we do a change order to that year, that we would report it during that year. And then next year, 2020, we essentially start with a new number, because what we try to do is anticipate for that year how much we're going to spend. That's how the county's contracts work, and so I can't speak to, because every contract is set up differently.
So would calendar year work, or do you need contract year?
That's basically what I was asking.
Your concrete, your crack seal, your emulsified, the three that we're on for today, are those this calendar year?
They're based upon the work that we expect. Sometimes they bleed into the next year. Maybe they're not quite finished or the billing's not quite done. But we would report that on basically that it's that year's contract, and so it's based upon when that work is when that contract is over. Typically, we try to keep it within the same year. But I know for one example, one year we. That was the 2018 amount, but it just got finished in another year.
Concrete goes in
Yeah.
the winter, but I don't know that crack sealing does. I don't know.
No, but
Your calendar, your contracts are let in calendar.
they're let in that calendar year. It's just sometimes the work bleeds over to the next year. But in any case, it's based upon that calendar year and when it ends. We will come back, even if that portion of the work, say we have 2018 work and it bleeds into 2019, we would still be coming back in 2019 with a new amount for that anticipated calendar year. Hopefully confusing.
It would appear to me that the safest way to report the information of percentage increases is over the year of the contract. And if it runs on a calendar year, that works out fine, and if it runs from June to June, it still works.
I just want to remind everybody, we don't have, quote, any right to know about that. We wanted to know, but they agreed. So let's not make it difficult on the staff.
Right.
Basically, this is a courtesy to us, and we have no say, quote, how they spend we have no jurisdiction to overlook, including the board, how they spend their maintenance money. That's by GAs. What?
We have a fiduciary responsibility.
So, are you clear?
Sir?
I think we need an email sent to
Tony,
be
send me
very
an
clear
email
about
forward.
what's expected of the city or county to provide.
Just turn
Yeah, I can turn it the other way, but
That was easy.
specifically for the information, it might be best to get some written direction.
For the record, I was fine with exactly what's on here, except for the miscalculation. That was the only thing I brought up.
So it caused a stir regardless.
That was an hour, yeah.
Tony, don't ask the question that you can't stand the answer.
I opened a can of worms.
Hey, if you're an attorney, you're
That's an
taught that.
understatement.
Tom, I hope you've got something figured out to say.
What I wrote down for a note is that policy 29 needs to be tweaked.
Or misinterpreted?
I was just going to say. Any other discussion?
So, Tony, are you okay?
Thank you for your information.
So are you
Sir,
going to
have you decided you'll never show up here again? Has he got a regular schedule for the first Wednesday of the month? Ms. Irvin, would you like to comment about this?
I would just mention that we'd be, from the county standpoint, happy to report whatever everybody decides, and maybe Rick can help with that. But either way, I mean, it's a matter of a spreadsheet. It's really not that big of a deal.
Contract, which is changed original.
I would say it would be good to be consistent so that, across the board, so whatever is decided. No big deal.
Right after the policy is revised.
Reb, the key to this whole issue is clarity. If the numbers are not correct, it's not clear, and if it seems like a number that needs to be explained, explain it.
I'm glad you brought it up, Tony. Better you than me, man.
Okay, I have what I need to put in an email. Okay. but I don't have your email address. I'll get a card on your card. Yeah. And the battery in that clock has died, so.
I've noticed that. I keep looking at, man, we're going to get this one done early. It's 10 minutes long. Cheryl, just behind you is a clock.
I know.
Well, I started the meeting on that clock. I don't even know if it was right over here. It's only 10 minutes long. Started right on time at 2:30 or 1:30.
Battery died.
The second hand's not
Rick?
moving, it's vibrating.
Yep, I have the rest.
Note the second hand is vibrating, not moving, not rotating.
Yeah.
Yeah, battery's dead.
I'm
You don't
not
get any
questioning
older
that.
when
I
you're
just
in this
noticed 10-minute long meeting.
Yeah, we don't age now.
That's good.
Wouldn't that be nice?
So we're ready for 7C, Staff Field Review Report. That's what I drove around, looked at, and confirmed. So any questions? Okay, thank you. Yes?
Yes, actually, just an item of note. On the, no, there's no page number. 2017 City of Colorado Springs Chip Seal Program completed streets list. One of the things that concerns me is we've seen an awful lot of, and I've been going through trying to be diligent, and I may have missed something, but we've been seeing an awful lot of work in the city core and surrounding areas, but the eastern part of the city, specifically anything east of Academy, pretty much, from Milton Proby all the way up to, I'd say, Stetson Hills area, is being neglected pretty severely.
I disagree wholeheartedly. I drive it all the time, and I can't find a way to get from west to east without hitting tons of construction.
Remember where I'm talking about. I'm talking east of Academy.
Yeah.
Okay. From
Carefree, both Carefrees are under construction. Barnes is under construction. Yeah.
where?
Murray.
From Academy to Powers.
Not anywhere I've driven. And I drive these things every day.
Barnes is definitely
I've seen
under
people
construction.
I've seen people doing crack seal and stuff like that. But I mean, the roads are literally falling apart. Drive Palmer Park is a great example. Palmer Park,
I haven't looked at Palmer Park, but I know at least
Constitution.
everything north of Constitution is under construction.
Okay. Then I'll grant you that mile and say everything south of Constitution is being neglected, and they have some of the worst roads in the city.
I might add that I talked to Corey on that. He would love to get on the Constitution. He's waiting for CSU.
Okay, so there's a good reason there. The only concern I have is, again, these are some of the poorer areas of the city that are seemingly having their infrastructure neglected. And you know, granted, Constitution, Carefree, south of Constitution is definitely an issue. Now, I do know that we obviously have the Cimarron Hills area, which is unincorporated, and that's county responsibility. However, again, between Academy, east of Academy, all the way out to Mark Scheffel, with the exclusion of the Cimarron Hills area, and all the way down south. And they're actually, I mean, they're chip sealing roads to, I understand the chip seal is to extend maintenance and to stuff like that. But even the roads that are in that area that I was talking about, north of Proby, south of Constitution, those roads aren't being chip sealed. Some of them aren't even being addressed at all. And they're literally falling apart. And that was just something I wanted to bring forward. I've brought it forward to Mike several times already. Folks who live in that area pay taxes too, and they do deserve a level of service, or at least to know what's going to happen.
You want to send me an email that I can forward to Corey?
Yeah, I was going to say Corey's.
Brian can speak for Corey.
Yeah, I can't speak for Corey, but I will say that PPRTA funds cover a certain amount of work, and 2C funds cover a great deal, really more of
Right.
the resurfacing program. North Carefree is under construction between Powers and Academy. I believe Barnes is as well. There's been some bridge maintenance work done to the east of Powers on, is it Stetson Hills or Powers? I can't remember which one, but there was some bridge maintenance work done over there. The Academy Boulevard reconstruction is going to be getting started this year, which is a $20 million project. We started Circle Drive Bridge project. That's going to be a large project for that area and a massive improvement for District 2 school district area. There's quite a bit of work. We do get that concern addressed to us, and Corey has put together maps as far as how many maintenance dollars are being spent in each council district, and surprisingly, it's actually quite even. There really isn't a huge discrepancy from one to another. There isn't a part of town that's getting a considerable percentage more or less than any other part of town.
So one of the things, Brian, Mr. Chair, I'm sorry. One of the things that we may be missing also, though, is that some of the council districts are larger land area than others. They have the same population.
Right.
However, you have a lot more lane miles in District 4 than you do in District 5 or something of the sort. So while the money may be distributed evenly, we see a lot more construction in, District 3. We see a lot more construction in District 3 because it's a smaller district.
Yeah.
So it's more concentrated, whereas it's spread out, and that doesn't mean it's not happening. It just means it's more spread out in the larger districts.
Right, and that I do understand. It's what it's gotten to is, and Corey and I have discussed it, is I'm getting people who live in my area of town who are going, okay, we're seeing all the work downtown. We're seeing, bike lanes and et cetera. We're seeing, Pikes Peak is ripped up and being repaired. We're seeing existing handicap ramps in the Broadmoor area being replaced with handicap ramps. And yet we've got streets that are literally alligatored and falling apart. And there's an impression, and I can understand the impression, that money is being spent in certain areas because squeaky wheel gets the grease. And the folks who live in these areas don't.
How do we get more people in District 4 to be squeaky wheels? That's something I've been working on. So.
If you want to send me an email, I can forward it.
Absolutely, yeah, that'd be great.
Their public service maps on their website tells the story of what's actually going on.
Yeah, I know. I've seen the website.
Move west.
Any other questions on the staff field report?
How often do you do it?
Quarterly.
It's quarterly, yeah.
Yeah.
How many extra seats do you have in your vehicle when you go out?
3.
Send me an email about 3. I'd like to go along at least one day.
Okay. That'll be June sometime.
And Rick, sorry, over here, if you're inspecting the bicycle lanes, I'm a bike rider, as you know, everybody seems to know that already. Please let me know, and I'll be more than happy to take a infrastructure tour on a bicycle on the new bike lanes.
Did you say on your bicycle?
On my
or-
bicycle. It's a bike lane. I assume that for item L, you looked at the bike lanes on 26th Street, you did that from a motorized vehicle, right?
Yes.
Don't text and drive at the same time.
Yeah, don't text and drive.
Let him take the first ride over the $10 million bridge.
That's the one we meant.
Hey,
Rick, I'm serious.
I'm writing it down. Okay. Are we ready to move on to the next?
please.
8A, report of recent board actions. That's in your packet. I'll try to take any questions you might have.
What was the executive session held on? It says executive session, it was held.
Was the top.
Give me a second to formulate the response without giving away secrets. What the board's next step should be regarding the legislation that was approved that's called Senate Bill 88, which was the legislation that the legislature intended to fix the unintended mistake from last year's, it's either Senate Bill or House Bill 267, which accidentally eliminated the marijuana sales tax collected by 8 or 10 special districts in the state, with the largest one being the Denver RTD. So the marijuana sales tax for the Denver RTD, all of the RTAs in the state, and several other special districts got eliminated by last year's either House Bill or Senate Bill 267. So this year's Senate Bill 88 declared that the legislature intended to reverse that error, but the legislation says if any of the special districts that were harmed by the loss of the marijuana sales tax revenue from a year ago have any doubts about whether or not to go back to the voters, because if the interpretation by the special district is that the accidental cut by the legislature of the sales tax is then retroactively reversed under Tabor, is that a tax increase, or is that a simple repair of a mistake? So the legislature said, we intend for this year's Senate Bill 88 to reverse our accidental mistake of last year, but if any of the local districts that have not been able to collect the 2.9% sales tax on marijuana feel that their own interpretation is that this is a tax increase, and you want to go to your voters, and in our case, spend $350,000 or $400,000 to go to the voters again, then feel free. That's what the legislature said on the last page of their Senate Bill 88. We've reversed this, but if you have any doubts, feel free to go back to your voters and spend whatever you need to spend on a ballot measure to do it.
Which means we'll be sued by Doug Bruce soon.
Correct.
Okay.
So what should the board do? Tell DOR to proceed to start collecting, or go to the voters?
It's happening out there. Don't worry. They're working on the duct.
That's a segue into two things under communications, but I'll go ahead and take the liberty. We're installing some electric locks from the front desk to be able to lock the exterior doors in case a known aggressive customer of the area agency on aging, that's one of the departments of PPACG here, if a known mean person is approaching the door, somebody can hit the lock and lock them out, because that has happened.
Sorry. Oh.
Brian just acknowledged he was one of them, and he's aging too.
The other segue under communications for wiring is that we've ordered a new microphone system for this room. It was to be in by today, but it didn't happen. The new microphones will have wires between them, between each microphone, detachable, but there'll be an in wire and then an incoming and an outgoing wire. So you'll have two wires for each mic going to two wires for each other mic, because in our PPACG morning meetings, there's been horrendous, Jessica, help me with the word, interference, and we don't know what it's coming from. We think it's from cell phones, but it's not happened. It's not happened at the CAC, and it's not happened at the PPRTA board. It just happens at the PPACG board meeting, and the variable are the 5 colonels from the 5 military bases. So my theory is, if we just had the 5 colonels go sit out in the audience, we wouldn't have to order new microphones, but we're ordering new microphones.
Like the way
The enemy and they are us.
My old NSA outfit.
Yes.
Should just treat it like a skiff, you know, cell phones, leave cell phones at the door.
Yeah,
I have too many of those.
like the bars in the 1800s, or the saloons. Okay, so any other questions on 8A? Okay, 8B, I've already talked about Senate Bill 88. Senate Bill 1 is the other one that's, and I did ask from our lobbyist, and he sent me the update, and what did I do with it? Maybe I left it over there. It passed the Senate because it was introduced in the Senate, and it's in the House, and it's not going anywhere. It's a short version, and I could walk back to my desk. It's probably sitting there. So it's in the, I think it's in the House Transportation Committee, but not set for any hearings. So it's just,
Plus, when it comes up, the Democrats are going to vote it down, so.
that's,
Yep.
so, that's all I have, unless you have questions on the legislative report. And I've already covered my items on communications, so
Is there anybody else that has anything to offer communications-wise? Cheryl?
I was wondering if we could have an update on the progress of the I-25 GAP project. Last time Karen Rowe was here, she indicated that the environmental work would be done in March, and they would begin.
April 18th is the
Yeah, I think
publication of the EL.
EL.
So it's moved a bit, that's
Yeah, my memory is mid-April.
mid-April.
It's April the 18th, it's supposed to be out, and they explained at the last public meeting that literally there would be two periods of public comment on it. And that's when some people are encouraging all the commissioners, highway commissioners, because they're ultimately going, and Rick, step in if I miss.
You're talking about the state transportation.
Yeah, state transportation commissioners, unelected, are going to make the final decision of what it is, when it is, where it's going to go, that sort of thing, and they're unelected. So CDOT has encouraged you to encourage them in whatever direction you believe it should go. But that has to happen between April the 18th, when it comes out, and it's May, and I want to say it's
Usually a 30-day review.
when the decision is supposed to be made, like in late May. But there's,
If I remember right, there's a couple public meetings, including one at the library, C21, sometime in early May, to go over all of that that's come out.
Thank you.
I will make a note to email you the whole CAC about the gap. PEL and meetings.
you know, you will email me that the city has turned landscape.
Just mumble, mumble, mumble.
I said I hope they'll email me that the city has agreed to put it in landscape form. Meeting's adjourned.
On it.
Everybody woke up with an attitude bill.
They're really pretty good. Saved you one and
Thank you. Good. I do appreciate it.
I'm the diabetic. A1C 6. Well, I can't get you one of those. I can't give you a 45% off discount.
I'm just
How am I going to
hard
pay
to
you for keeping
please.
me awake?